Hey guys, it's Kwana back again with another review. Hope you guys are doing awesome. Today I'm going to be talking about This Is Us Season 6, Episode 15, simply entitled Miguel. And this is actually the second time I've recorded this video, so I'm going to try to get the time down on this a little bit. But I had so many thoughts and feelings, and last night was so emotional that I thought it was worthy of a second take. So if you can appreciate the hard work that I'm putting into this and the other videos on the channel, then do me a favor and click that subscribe button down below. It really helps me out over here, stay motivated to create more and more content. And also, if you end up liking this video, give it a big thumbs up. I will start by saying that this has been a very long awaited episode. I know that there are tons of fans out there who have been not fans of Miguel since it was revealed that he and Rebecca got married in the first season, that he was grandpa after having been Jack's best friend. I always kind of took the wait and see approach with Miguel. There was nothing in his behavior that kind of seemed untoward toward Rebecca. Also, Annie and Tess called him grandpa. So that really helped solidify for me. I know that not every family is created the same. And this has always been a show about family and the ways in which families uniquely come together. So I've always been really supportive of Miguel. And there was an episode, and I want to say it was in season 2, where Toby, Beth, and Miguel are waiting together at a bar. And it's around the time that I believe Kevin was having his drinking issues, if I'm not mistaken. It's been a really long time since I've watched that episode, but I really felt like that episode would have been a great place to get a little bit more backstory for those three characters. It would have been a great segue into a Toby, Beth, and Miguel 3-episode arc. We've gotten Toby episodes, we've gotten Beth episodes, but this is really the first Miguel episode, and it's so very bittersweet that it's coming at the end of the show, with this as being like the 4th to last episode of the series. So I want to give a quick recap for this episode before going into my thoughts and things that I loved about it, but also some things that I wish that the show, I'm hoping that the show will give to us in the remaining 3 episodes. So let's get started with the recap. All right, so the episode picks up with a little Miguel in Puerto Rico. We get to see him playing baseball. You know, he's a big fan of Clemente, and we see his family. We hear a conversation between his mom and dad. His dad has been laid off from work, and so he is going to take an opportunity to move with some family in Pennsylvania. So the whole family is going to move to Pennsylvania. We get to see the dynamics of their family. It's Miguel's father, it's Miguel's mother, and his aunt who are living there. His mother is taking care of his aunt. So this brings us to how he came to the mainland of America. And from there, his father begins landscape work, and he, tagging along with his father, is at the home of one of their wealthy clients, where he gets to see a baseball game, gets to have a conversation with this very wealthy white man about baseball and about how what's really important is where you sit at the game. And Miguel is just like, I don't care where I sit, just as long as I get to see it. I really struggled with what that line meant as it pertained to the show, but it really just has to do with the idea of like having a seat at the table. Like, Miguel's not one who's going to make a big fuss about where he sits, about where he stands. Thinking back to last week's episode, right, with or 2 weeks ago, with Kate and Philip's wedding, and Miguel being moved to the side so that Kevin could stand near Rebecca when she has that moment of lapse where she thinks that Kevin is Jack. He doesn't care as long as his wife's okay. He doesn't care as long as he's there. He just wants to be present. And that's kind of been a motif in his life. We get to see him trying to get work. We have that scene where he has an interview and they call out the name Mike Rivers instead of Miguel Rivas, and he gets the job. And then thankfully he does have a moment where he tells the boss, you know, hey, my name is actually Miguel, but Miguel wasn't getting a call back and Mike did. And I'm glad that they had that moment, because that's such a true moment for so many people. Luckily in my field, I don't know if that's been an issue. I just don't know. I've managed to make space for myself, but I definitely have a name that is hard to, you're going to look at my name and you're going to assume that you know certain things about me. And that's okay. I don't go by my middle name. I go by my first name, and people screw it up and I correct them when I can. And if they don't correct, it's okay. You know, I don't make a big fuss about it, but it really just shows how having like a non-Anglican name can really stifle you from success. Moving on, one of the most important scenes is when he goes to meet up with Jack at the bar, and Rebecca is there. And Rebecca and Miguel were not getting along. Rebecca did not like Miguel, and Jack forces them to stay there and bond. These are the two most important people in his life, and he wants them to connect with each other. This is, of course, hoping, I think, to quiet the naysayers, or to quiet those fans who have secretly suspected that Miguel was after Rebecca all along. You know, going back to that iconic moment where Jack was kind of falling back into heavy drinking, and Miguel had to tell him about himself and check him and say, look, you got one of the best wives around and you are doing her a disservice, and kind of keeping him in check. We also get to see that it's really Rebecca and Jack, but mostly Rebecca, who connect him with his first wife, Shelley. And we get to see their relationship evolve in a very quick montage. Probably the most harmful part about that was hearing her compare him to Jack, because this is a comparison and a legacy that he is going to fight to live up to for the rest of his life. And it's not till the end of the show that I think we as fans get to see him as his own person, or even that the Pearsons get to see him as his own person. The show kind of toggles back and forth between present timeline, which we have to remember, present timeline is actually a future timeline. So now they're playing with flash forward more in terms of the main timeline, because the main timeline is actually 3 to 4 years into our future. So we're looking at about 2026, right around there. But we're seeing Miguel take care of Rebecca, putting her shoes on in the morning, getting her medicine, really shirking off the help of the nurse's aide and taking it all on himself. He wakes up one night, Rebecca's not there, and she's out dancing in the snow. I really freaked out thinking that she was going to be lost again. He goes out to help her, and he slips and suffers a fall. We hear through some doctor's visits that he's had a hip replacement surgery during this time, that he's having some heart issues. It's not looking good for Miguel. And I couldn't help but wonder, going off of the episode where Randall and Miguel are talking, and Randall kind of sees that things aren't going well with Miguel, like in the time since Kate's wedding, why hasn't more been done to help Miguel, because he is also in dire straits. We kind of see this come to fruition, thankfully, by the end of the episode. As things progress, we get to see more and more of Miguel's life, the disillusionment from his family. He's, his dad and he having some conflict. His dad passes away. He gets to reconnect with his family. Love the Afro-Latino mixture of the family. Like, you get to see various shades within his family. That was a beautiful moment. That bittersweet, because those are kind of things that I wish we could have gotten from the show all along. Like, if they had concluded at least 1 or 2 other episodes, it's not the Miguel show, but 1 or 2 other episodes kind of connecting Miguel to greater storylines would have been such a nice thing to do. And even they could have done it with parallels between Jack and Miguel, showing like their respective childhoods, would have been interesting. I digress. We go on and on into him moving to Houston, trying to reconnect with his kids. It's not going well. And then eventually the reconnecting with Rebecca, and then them getting back together. We get to see the moment where they try to announce it to the family, and Kevin reacts very harshly. We have to keep in mind, this was Kevin circa age 28, and he's in his selfish phase. But Beth was the one who spotted it, and I stand by my statement last week that I think Beth would have picked up on Sophie being more available, instead of suspecting that she was married, would have had a conversation with her. They weren't close, but they knew each other. They were all teenagers and, young adults together. So I definitely think she would have kind of like suspected more and would have actually been clued in a little bit more. Randall picks up on that before Beth, and that's just not their MO. Beth is the one who sees things, not Randall. So anyway, I thought it was cute that Beth picked up on Rebecca and Miguel, perhaps Rebecca having a bow and getting her square on. And then we kind of jump forward back into the present, but flash forward timeline where things with Miguel aren't going well. And the family has to sit down and talk to him about using a health care professional full time. And he is just so against this. This is his wife. He can take care of her. The whole time they're having that conversation, I'm silently screaming at the TV, someone tell Miguel that you're doing this for him, that you care about him, that you care about his well-being, that he needs it, that his health could improve because of it. And it takes a little while, but Randall eventually does move closer to Miguel and says, we love you and we're doing this for you. And that was a moment that I wish could have come so much sooner. Miguel, we don't know really much about what Miguel was like as a father to his own kids, but we do know he has been there for these Pearson kids since Jack died. And I needed to hear that. I needed to hear them tell Miguel that they loved him. I think by now we all at this point of the episode kind of know what's coming. And Kevin reaches out to Miguel's son and it's like, look, I don't think your dad has much time left and you really need to reconnect. And they have that final Thanksgiving. The family is all together. It's beautiful. We don't know where his daughter is. I don't think his daughter was in that scene. So it was kind of interesting that they didn't explicitly explain that. But aside from that, I think that it was a beautiful moment. I have to bring up the apple tree because if you guys will remember when Rebecca first was diagnosed with her dementia, one of the things Miguel talked about was planting some flowers, planting a tree. And then he talked about, growing an apple tree because it takes so long for them to fruit. And it was like a way of saying, well, they have time. And we see that their apple tree is fruiting, but there's so much symbolism in that, right? Because it's now fruiting and their time is up and Miguel's time is up and he passed on. Sorry. I cried. I boohooed. Miguel has been one of my favorite characters. I feel like Miguel lives in that space of Jack, Randall, and Jack and Randall and Toby for a while, that just such good men. And not to say that Kevin is not a good man, but Kevin struggled so much. And I think they're just like, seem like they just effortlessly got it right. Obviously, he didn't get it right with his first marriage, but with this family, he has gotten so much right. I really wish, and I think with the hardest thing is at the end, he passes on and we get to see them sprinkling his ashes at the apple tree, and then Kevin and his son sprinkling his ashes back in Puerto Rico. Such a beautiful send-off. And I think that makes it all the more bittersweet that we didn't get this episode sooner. Okay, so final thoughts. Beautiful episode. So quiet. A lot of montages. And so I think that just comes from the fact that they're literally cramming in like the whole life of this man into one episode. There's a lot of montages, a lot of quiet moments, and a lot of beautiful moments. Probably like MVP moment for me of the night is when he and Rebecca finally reconnect after 8 years in person. And he's telling her that he's, had to endure moving from Puerto Rico to here, moving from, but he's never felt more homesick than when he left her on that porch. That was such a beautiful moment. And then he's uncertain what to do. And Rebecca just goes full on, takes control, gives him a kiss, and they end up doing the together. Such a sweet moment. Like I said, I really loved this episode. It will probably go down as one of my like top 10 episodes of this series, just because Miguel has been a character I've wanted us to get to see so much more of throughout the show. And I think it was just such a beautiful and quiet episode, and full of so much subtle cultural nuance that it almost is a travesty that we're getting it this long, because this late in the game, because we didn't get to see those things intertwined. But I think it really speaks to the man that Miguel was, that he really was this unknown man because he was searching for his own identity for so long. Going back to the words of that man, his father's boss, and the best seats are behind home plate, and he's like, I just want to see the game. And he lived a life where it was almost like he just wanted to be present and in the space of these people. And I'm really glad that he got to solidify his relationship with his son towards the end. I really, really wish that in the moments where they were having the funeral scene outside of the apple tree and saying goodbye, that we got a chance to hear some words from Rebecca, but I don't think I would have been able to handle it, so I get it. So I really wish we would have gotten that. And yeah, I just wish they could have sprinkled this and maybe given us at least 2 other Miguel-centered episodes along the way. But alas, it's not meant to be. Moving on to what I'm expecting going forward, we have 3 more episodes. Next week, family meeting, where they're going to talk about Rebecca and her long-term care now that Miguel is gone. There's one called The Train. I suspect The Train will tie in maybe that scene of Rebecca and her father, perhaps, with other Pearson family members on trains, perhaps tying in some of the younger Pearsons that we haven't seen. I would love for us to get a scene where we see Deja maybe on a subway train in New York, or somewhere in Boston on a train or somewhere, and she meets up, serendipitously with Malik, and that's how they reconnect. I would love that. I would love that to be something that we get. And then the final episode, and that's it. That's all we have left, guys. This is really the end. And I'm going to be so sad when that comes. I will say this. I wish we had gotten a better send-off with the younger Pearsons, specifically with the girls who play Randall's teenage daughters. And I get it. Now that we're in this time jump, they can't really have those actresses play those characters. So I wish we had had a bigger moment, because the last time we saw them was when Randall went to get Deja from Boston. We only really saw Tess and Deja in the episode. We didn't get to see Annie. I do think it looks like perhaps there might be a way in which they do some montages or some scenes, maybe in the final episode, or maybe even in that train episode, where we get to see them. I hope that we get to see them again. Those 3 actresses just have had so much chemistry, and I've really enjoyed seeing them on screen together. And we don't really know Jack and Haley and Kevin's kids, but we've gotten a chance to know those 3 actresses. So I can't wait till we get to see them some more. But guys, this is really we're really here at the end of the show. So I really want to know from you guys, what did you think of tonight's episode or last night's episode? Have you been a Miguel fan from jump, or if you weren't, did this episode change your mind about Miguel? And what was your takeaway or your big moment from this night's episode? I really want to know. I want to thank you guys again. As always, these are just my thoughts and opinions on This Is Us, and I thank you for joining me. If you like this video, don't forget to click that like and subscribe button, and I will see you guys next week. Toodles.